California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2. Also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, Bill Maher got fed up with all the woke nonsense coming his way on this episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, and all the woke people going after Donald Trump and what he's trying to do with the deportations and the judges going after Donald Trump, telling him he can't do certain deportations and things like that. And Bill Maher just tried, of all the nonsense, and he just absolutely goes off on this episode of Real Time Bill Maher, stunning his woke audience. Let's just dive right in and check it out.
But here, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't follow politics that closely. And they're Venezuelan gang members. Why are we even arguing about this? They shouldn't be in this country. This guy's finally doing something about it. He's kicking them out. And a judge, one judge told him to stop. Well, what law is this? That any judge anywhere can... I don't know why I'm using that accent, but... I went into my stupid voice, but why is it that one judge anywhere can say, oh, a president can't do this? I mean, that's something that's a little abstruse to a lot of people.
Look, I think you can make the argument. The question is, can you get to where people are listening to the argument? The thing about the election, the thing about politics right now, is Donald Trump wins people who don't like to think about politics, right? That's very, very clear in all the polling. If you follow the news, you voted for the Democrats, by and large. If you don't follow the news, you voted for him. And I'm not saying that that means that people who voted for him are less smart or anything like that, but the problem the Democrats have, the problem that Andrew's argument has, that my argument has, that your argument has, is how do you reach people? It's not even really, I think, that the problem is people hear that the Venezuelan gang members are being deported and what is the judge's power over this? They don't hear about it at all, oftentimes, right? I mean, this stuff is all in the news, and if you're tuned it out, it's very hard to get to you. And so the thing that I think they understand, I mean, you've had Steve Bannon on this show, right?
I think we have him coming up. So yes, we've had him, and we're going to have him again, and then he's going to have us.
His whole thing is you flood the zone. Right? His whole thing is you flood the zone with bullshit, because the pipe of information for most people is pretty narrow. And even if they hear about one thing, they don't hear about...
I think it's pretty obvious that if you watch the news, you probably voted for Donald Trump, because I mean, a lot of people flipped to voting for Donald Trump that voted for Joe Biden in the prior election, or said in the past they would never vote for Donald Trump ever because they do follow the news, they do read the lies and know what's going on out there, mostly in the culturally speaking. Mostly United States care about when you get into actual policies and bills and laws, and whenever you start talking about men competing in women's sports or things that are going on in the classroom affecting the kids, what's being taught to the kids, what's being withheld from parents, what kind of information that they're not getting, and what's going on to the kids in the classroom, that's when they start to really care, and they start to emotionally, charge that. And just so for Donald Trump themselves to sell their friends to have over Donald Trump, they start to share their viral videos, social media, that algorithm works. And I think it's very obvious that the people who are not as much in an echo chamber voted for Donald Trump and wanted Donald Trump to win versus the other side who are still one of your, Donald Trump haters and want him to lose, and they're very much in their echo chamber and refuse to acknowledge that they are wrong. And, I think it's pretty obvious, right?
10. You overwhelm the media, you overwhelm people, and also you recognize that most people don't want to think about it, right? And so you can get a lot done under the cover of chaos, and it's a very genuine problem. It's not a crazy strategy they're running. The one thing that is crazy about it is they flood their own zone. They don't know what they're doing. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. They don't know the people they're firing. They don't know what might break. So we don't really know what are the things that are going to break through, because it turned out planes started dropping out of the sky, or some group they fired led to a nuclear disaster, right? Like, they also do not have a great sense of what they're doing. They don't mean to be deporting some of the people they appear to be deporting, but we don't know what will break through, because fundamentally you're trying to convince people who are not watching the show right now.
Yeah.
And this is a great tweet here by Eric Albinante, where he's kind of summing up this whole thing. He kind of says, Gilmore panelists claim Trump won with those who don't follow the news. If you, still decline Donald Trump wins, people who don't like to think about politics, if you follow the news. But if a Democrat, we don't follow the news, you voted for him talking about Donald Trump, how do you reach people? Eric says, MAGA follows the news. They just don't blindly follow the news like liberals. And I would have to agree with that. It's like, you watch one night of CNN or CNBC, you basically know all what the leftists think, versus there's many different thought patterns on the right wing, many different ways of thinking on the right wing, especially when it comes to geopolitics. Many different people think different ways, but like I said, the cultural issues I think really got people going on the right wing and just in the center and even on the left. And they're just like, enough is enough. We can't deal with this anymore. We have to just vote for common sense. And that's kind of what happened. So I don't know. You know, Trump won the popular vote for the very first time in a long time. We also have the clip here from Eric Abinante where Bill Maher starts talking about how much it's really shifted and how many states are going from blue to red, and it's getting crazy. You know, it's getting undeniable at this point how much the culture is shifting, how much time is turning, and Bill Maher accepting the fact that there's other people out there in his audience and his panel that are not willing to accept that fact. Let's check it out.
Is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, you know, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah,
taxes and regulation. I certainly been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, oh, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my fucking roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem. And we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
So we poll this. They're leaving on cost of living. That's all part of it. They're leaving because they can't afford homes. And it's a huge, not just political.
I mean, that's still a negative to the person who's running that state or that area or that city. They're leaving. If the cost of living is so high that people are forced to leave, forced to just up with their lives and go somewhere else, that's not like a get out of jail free card. It's not like, oh, I don't have any accountability here. That's still a problem. And, you know, and let's be real, that's not the only reason people are leaving. If you look at, you know, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone honestly say that's a contributing factor, but it's almost never the main factor. People will do a lot of things to not have to up and just jump their lives, leaving their family behind, their job, possibly having to pull their kids out of school, you know, just having to up and go somewhere else and become around completely new people, new neighbors, new strangers, and just take a pay cut to go somewhere else. And, you know, it's not like it's a thing that most people want to do. So there's probably more than just cost of living for why people are leaving. And almost every single time you see, you know, a famous person, they leave, they're famous, so they obviously have more money. They don't cite the cost of living. They cite ridiculous new rules, laws, hoops you have to jump through, ways to not be able to stay off the grid. You know, the lockdowns really drove a lot of people out of California. The crime rate in New York City drove a lot of people out of there. Same thing in San Francisco. The fact they're not trying to fix the crime problem by not fixing the crime, they just raise the threshold for what constitutes as a crime. People are just leaving and saying this is insanity. Same with homelessness. And I do think the cost of living is a contributing factor, but it's not the only thing. And let's be realistic about that. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Those numbers you just gave, after 2030, if that holds, a Democrat could win every state Kamala Harris won, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and I'm just blanking on the third blue wall state, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and win Wisconsin, and lose the presidential election, right? The blue wall would no longer be enough for them to win. And you have to take that.
You mean they could win those 3 states and still
lose the presidential? That's how bad it is, right?
Wow.
And that's because they are driving people out, working class families out of the states that they govern because the cost of living is too high. And the cost of living is too high in part for regulatory reasons, in part for taxes. But the big problem is they just don't have enough of the things people need. Not enough homes, not enough energy, not a government capable of delivering. And they've been treating that as not a real problem. You were talking about your solar sign. California high-speed rail, it's a huge disaster, but nobody's ever done anything about it. If you tried to build it again, it would go the exact same way.
High-speed rail?
Yeah, California's high-speed rail.
I think we first passed it in 2008. I think they just voted about something about it again. It's projected. Just give up. Just to build, I think, from Bakersfield to Merced. Who the hell wants to go from Bakersfield to Merced? And they couldn't do that.
I went out and toured this for the book. And the people building it were perfectly clear with me. Look, this doesn't work if we don't do LA to San Francisco. And they don't have the money to do LA to San Francisco. And they don't have the regulatory structure to do it. They have been clearing. They started clearing the rail track through environmental review. The whole point of high-speed rail is it's good for the environment.
Right.
They started clearing it through environmental review in 2012. By the end of 2024, when I was fact-checking the book, it was almost done. The reviews were all...
You know, there's something really weird going on, and I don't want to say it's money laundering, but I think these politicians are just pocketing a whole lot more money than what they say they are. And almost every single time they're investigated, they get found, you know, of crimes, and they get charged, and the news stories are all over the place. They're hoarding money, they're pocketing money, and they're supposed to be almost every single time. And that should be a prime example of, like, hey guys, something's going on here. And if it's taken 12 years just to clear the land and lay a railroad, something's going on there. And Bill Maher is correct. You know, nobody wants to live in these states. And this is also a big factor, which is why, you know, because they get taxed so much and yet they see nothing in return. Let me know in the comments below if y'all agree with this, where you stand on this. And of course, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.